This is Jackie Jack White, and you're listening to the business side of music.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
This is Bob Bender. You're listening to this edition of the business side of music. Today on the show, we have James Donio, who is actually the president of the Music Business Association. Some of you, such as myself, that are old dogs in the business, you'll actually remember them many years ago as NARM. James and I were talking before the show, and he told me they changed the name a few years back. I think you said at least 5 or 6 years ago. The really cool thing is they are now celebrating their 60th anniversary. The new name, I should say, in the last 5 or 6 years, is now the Music Business Association. It's a nonprofit membership organization. They advance and promote music commerce. It's a community committed to the full spectrum of monetization models in the industry. James, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Bob. It's a pleasure.
Great. In talking and finding out a little bit about you're president of the organization, correct?
Yes, I've been with the association for literally just about half of my life, 30 years. I celebrate my 30th anniversary in May, which is the same month that we have our big annual conference. The organization is celebrating its 60th, as you've said. So yes, I've been with the organization for a long time, seen both the organization and the industry through, all of the various changes and drama that the music business has been through. But, I'm proud that I've come out on the other side and the association has come out on the other side, because we've been able to shift and change and be nimble in terms of reflecting what's going on in the business of music.
I think one of the things that folks such as you and I can say, because we witnessed a huge transition take place about 18 to 20 years ago when we went from a physical content format, such as CDs, went from cassettes to CDs, and then it went in rather quickly into a totally electronic format platform, which was digital downloads, and now it's streaming. So it's changed the dynamics of how the music business works. How's that affected what your association's doing?
Well, as I said, we are a membership organization, and our members, our constituents have changed over the 6 decades. The organization began as a forum for labels and distributors to come together and talk about selling physical music in stores. Actually originated with talking to health and beauty stores with what was called the Toiletry Merchandisers Association. So a way to get albums and 45s to be sold into health and beauty and then eventually discount stores. That's how the organization began in 1958. So over these 6 decades, we've gone from, a completely physical distribution business in non-traditional types of retail establishments into the era of specialty music stores and big music chains like Tower and Sam Goody and so forth through the 60s, 70s into the 80s. And then with the advent of the CD in the early 80s, and then other types of non-traditional stores got involved in selling music. Big department stores, discount stores, mass merchants, bookstores took us up and through the end of the century. And then, as you said, switch was flipped. And with the creation of Napster and digital downloading and file sharing and so forth, the music business went through an era of tremendous tumult and rampant piracy and theft of intellectual property. And it was essentially upended by a technology that, also provided, and as we see where we are now, provided, opportunities in the long run in terms of marketing and social networking and now streaming. But there was a pretty difficult time in the infancy of the digital development of music. So here we find ourselves 60 years later, and the organization has weathered those shifts. Our constituencies, our initiatives, things that we focus on have changed as the needs of the industry and our members have changed. But our core mission from the outset was to be a trusted forum, a place for companies and individual professionals in the business to come together, to have meetings, to make new business contacts, to discover new music and new tools and new technologies. And we've adhered to that mission, for all 6 decades. Now we've got different faces and different types of companies around the table, but that's reflective of what's going on in the business.
I know one of the things that I remember from my record label days, we used to attend the NARM conference. I remember one year we attended it in San Antonio, and we'd sit down with retailers and we'd talk about the business and how the changes came about. And I've mentioned this on other podcasts. We've had, I should say, at one point when I was with the one record company, we had 26 major retail accounts we called on. And you mentioned some of those: Tara Records, The Warehouse, Licorice Pizza, Walmart, Best Buy, Circuit City, etc. And within about a 7-year span, that went down from 26 major accounts down to about 6. Now, in days that I'm looking at who's actually carrying music, and we're getting down really to the big box stores, and please help me if there's, there are specialty retailers.
Yeah, it's changed. Certainly it's changed. There are still small and mid-sized chains. There are still independent stores. There's still single store operators around the country. They have, kind of organized and galvanized themselves by organizing into what we call retail coalitions, and they've been around for essentially 20 plus years, and they comprise companies and stores from across the country. There are 3, the Department of Record Stores, DOORS, D-O-R-S for short, the Coalition of Independent Music Stores, CIMS, C-I-M-S for short, and the Alliance of Independent Media Stores, AIMS for short. Those 3 coalitions, they came together, and a little more than a decade ago, they created something that has grown into an international phenomenon called Record Store Day, which is actually coming up on April 21st. It's the 3rd Saturday in April every year.
And tell us a little bit about Record Store Day.
So Record Store Day has become really a global phenomenon. It takes place around the world. So there are dozens and dozens of countries around the world that help celebrate Record Store Day. Big support, obviously, in the United States, the UK, Japan, France, Germany, but all over the world. So on this day, which has now sort of been referred to as a music holiday of sorts, there are unique, one-of-a-kind, limited edition musical creations that are recorded and made available to music fans on this one day. For a lot of now, traditional music stores, these stores have diversified because they've had to. So they sell and kind of position themselves in their marketplaces by selling a variety of things. But the heart and soul of the businesses is still music. So on this day, for a lot of these stores, it's now their biggest day of the year. It's bigger than, the week before Christmas. It's bigger than the day after Thanksgiving. It's bigger than, Valentine's Day. So it has really been an important component of the reemergence of vinyl as a significant part of the physical business. In fact, in the year-end stats that were just released by the recording industry, for the first time in many, many, many years, the revenue from physical products, so CDs and vinyl, for 2017 actually exceeded digital downloads and digital albums. So that's a pretty significant fact. Now, of course, overarching all of that is the dominance now, as you alluded to earlier, of streaming. So streaming is by all measures now the dominant consumption form for the way in which people are discovering and enjoying and consuming music. So that's been a major sea change in the music business. It is now the dominant form, but our organization, while that is the dominant form, and the companies that are now part of our organization, Spotify, Amazon, Pandora, Apple, Facebook, etc. While they are Google and YouTube, of course, as well. While they are major forces, along with all the music labels and other companies that that are represented within our membership, the independent physical stores are still, a healthy, vibrant part of not just our organization, but of the music business. When you then look at the other types of larger accounts that you were referring to, like Walmart and Best Buy and Target and so forth, their positioning in terms of music has certainly shifted and changed over time, and continues to evolve and change with respect to how they're handling music. There are some other larger chains like Transworld Music out of Transworld Entertainment, out of Albany, New York, Newbury Comics, which is in Boston and has stores in some other locations in New England, but also in New York. They have a store. And there are flagship independent companies and stores, Music Millennium, Waterloo Records, Amoeba Records, Dimple, Record Archive. So the physical business, as you said, has certainly changed. The number of accounts has certainly changed, but the way that the business is organized around physical music is certainly significantly different than when you were, working for the label.
And that's one of the things I want to dig in a little deeper here when we get back from our break. On the show today, James Donio from the Music Business Association. He's president, been with the organization for 30 years. We're going to pick his brain a little bit more about the music business and where it's going. This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Vinny Rebus, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these Business Side of Music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag. That's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
This is Bob Bender. We're back in the studio. James Donio with the Music Business Association, president of that organization, is on the phone with us as we talk about the Music Business Association. One of the things that I hear a lot about with upcoming artists, with aspiring artists, is, I want a record deal. I want to get my music out there. And of course, that's a big conversation we have with them constantly is, okay, so where do you want your music to be? Because Walmart and Target and Best Buy, which are really the three big block stores, they're only carrying the top 20 or 30 of really kind of each genre. So you mentioned like Amoeba Music and Newberry and Transworld. Are they opening the doors for independent artists to carry music?
They always have. Yeah, they always have. And, the pinnacle of carrying everything certainly was a chain or stores like Tower Records, where that was part of their commitment, was that they carried everything. Certainly today, it's a balancing act for any of these stores and these businesses to carry what's going to be reflective of their customers. Inventory can be different in different parts of the country, but
Right.
by
And
and
would it
large,
change almost? Would it change almost from store to store?
it
Or?
can. It actually can. It certainly depends on the size of the chain. Certainly, if it's a single store in a college town, the inventory is going to be different, from a single store, downtown in, a big city like, Philadelphia or New York or so forth. So I think that the savviest of these entrepreneurs are going to, carry what's reflective of, their music fans that are in the area. So independent music is certainly a big part of that. They work very closely and collaboratively, with the large labels as well as the independent labels. I mean, there's still an opportunity, particularly in these stores that are kind of the original social networking, if you will, where people who still commune. There are people who still like to touch and feel. As I said, we've had this resurgence in the vinyl business. There are, diehard music fans who still appreciate and support and value music stores and come in and, like to talk to the people who work there and find out what's new. Typically on a regional basis, artists and bands that are bubbling up will perform at these stores. And that's something that you can't really necessarily replicate that in a virtual way. You can watch a concert, on your phone or your computer or your wristwatch or a tablet, etc. But there's still something special and unique and magical about a new band that's coming up in a town in the United States, and they're from that area, and they play in a store or in a parking lot attached to the store or in a venue near the store, and you get to meet them and you get to have a selfie with them, or you get to have the CD autographed by them. There's still something magical about that, and that's part of why these stores are so valued and so important, both culturally and commercially, in their area. And so that's sort of one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum, we now have this amazing technology that's provided to us by Apple and Spotify and Google and YouTube and Pandora and Amazon, where with these new devices, like the Echo with Alexa, or the Google Home or the HomePod, etc. You can just come home and say, play me some relaxing music. You can come home and say, I want to hear Dixie Chicks, which is my favorite band. I want to hear a symphony. It's just opened up, this voice activation technology has opened up these new opportunities for music to be so accessible. And these streaming services, through, all the various new initiatives that they've mounted. So, there are playlists for just about everything, every mood, every type of music you could imagine. And there's now probably more music and more access to music than there's ever been before. Music is easier to create and get in front of a lot of people, very quickly than it's ever been before. So the challenges that the industry has faced, certainly going from the advent of Napster to where we are today, which is, as you said, almost 20 years, is getting back to a place of health, which the industry is right now for the past couple of years, in terms of the monetization of music and assuring that artists are paid and songwriters are paid and publishers are paid and labels are paid and the stores are paid and the services are paid. So there is a business of music where there are transactions. We're agnostic to how the transaction takes place. People still want the physical experience. That's great. People want to stream. That's great. Some people fall somewhere in the middle, where for certain artists, they're going to buy the physical product. For other types of music, they're happy just to stream it, to listen to the radio, to watch videos on YouTube where the advertising is supporting it. I mean, there are myriad ways where the music is monetized, and that's all come about in the last 20 years. And now we've reached a time where the industry is returning to health from a revenue perspective again. And so now we all look to see what's next, what's coming down the horizon.
That's probably where we need to take this conversation next. We're going to take a break, and then I'm going to come back and talk about that. I will say you brought up a valid point, and that's one thing. If you're a young, aspiring artist who's wanting to make it, don't forget about the record stores, because back in the days 30, 40, 50 years ago, that's what young artists, especially unsung artists, did. It wasn't always a record label album release party. That was, as you said, it was a great kind of a social networking community before we had Facebook and Twitter and
it still is.
Yeah, and it should be, right.
Yeah, and that's my point, is that there are a lot of folks who there's so much coverage justifiably about what's going on and how the music business has changed and what technology has done. But at the same time, you will see amazing photographs and coverage in a couple of weeks on Record Store Day where, at 9:00 in the morning, you're going to see literally hundreds of music fans lined up outside of stores across the country, waiting for the chance to, get some of these unique limited edition, musical creations. So there's definitely, opportunities out there, as you've underscored, that there are opportunities out there for many ways to, explore, getting your music out to your fans.
And I think that's a date that everybody should remember, which this year is April 21st, is the National Record Store Day. I know that I'm one of those guys that'll go to Amoeba Records in Hollywood, and as my wife will attest, I will spend hours and, just trying to find that right music. And you hit upon something that I couldn't agree with more, which is a lot of those employees, most if not all of those employees, are very well versed in what they're carrying, what is good, what we should listen to, and they know their business. They know what it is that they've got in there in the way of inventory. I think that's very important. But when we come back, I want to talk about where things are going to be going. This is Bob Bender. We're in the studio with James Donio, who's the president of the Music Business Association, and you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music. Next up, the Indie Artist Spotlight, brought to you by Reverb Nation.
Hi, this is Delphi Freeman, and I'm a member of Reverb Nation.
She was tired and lonely, her secrets locked up deep. A stranger in an ocean of unrequited love. Dying in LA, sorry I can't stay. Do you know the ways of my heart?
I'm based out of San Francisco, California. Some of the more interesting places I performed would be Ghirardelli Square in San Francisco, and also I had the pleasure of playing at NAMM in Anaheim back in 2015. My music genre would be electronic indie pop with some folk. Some of the artists I really love listening to would have to be Reliant K, James Taylor, and Yes. My current project is called Audio Cinema. Here's a cut from Audio Cinema titled Who Am I?
Cry myself to sleep on widow's night. All the secrets we will keep. dying in LA. Sorry I can't stay. Do you know the ways of my heart? Cold yarrow, my soul. My intentions are pure to the core. I'm searching for a cure. I'll get it out of my head that I'm already dead, and I'll never go anywhere. I'll get it out of my head that I'm already dead, and I'll never go anywhere. Anywhere. Get it out of my head that I'm already dead, and I'll never go anywhere. I'll get it out of my head that I'm already dead, and I'll never go anywhere. Anywhere.
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, all at Delphi Freeman. And you can also go to my website at delphifreeman.com.
I will accept the things I can't change, change the things I can, with wisdom to know the difference.
This is Delphi Freeman, and I'm a member of Reverb Nation.
You're listening to the business side of music.
This is Bob Bender. You're listening to this edition of the Business Side of Music. James Donio, president of Music Business Association, in the studio with us. So, James, we left off where music is going. And, we've touched on some of those things with, of course, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Where do you see this next generation of, let's say, music listeners, music consumers, more importantly? Where do you see them coming from and going to?
It's a good question, Bob, because I'm a professor as well. I'm an adjunct professor at Monmouth University in West Long Branch, New Jersey. And I'm in my 5th year there of teaching introduction to the music business ecosystem. And part of what I'm doing there is, greeting these 35 wide-eyed 17 to 20-year-olds who are songwriters, they are singers, they are musicians, and they are in this program at Monmouth to learn about the business side of music, which is what this podcast is all about. So, I review with them all the various types of career opportunities that there are in the business in terms of publishing and labels and songwriting, but there's so many other areas of the business that are part of the music business. Brand influence, bands, artists, and brands is a big piece of where the music business is now and probably will continue to grow. Certainly, data, new technologies, devices, ways in which we are discovering and consuming music will continue to evolve. We discuss and talk about, artificial intelligence. We now have, as I mentioned in, one of our last segments about, voice activation. We have these voice assistants that can help us, discover and enjoy music. And then, there are going to continue to be virtual reality experiments and new ways of, being at a concert, being backstage, different ways that artists are going to create music and also express themselves using these new ways of engaging and experiencing with fans. So I talk about all of this in my class, and certainly these are, teen and early 20s students who will come up and say, so now it's streaming. So what's going to be next?
Right. And that's a question that I think we're all wondering. We all wish we had that crystal ball to figure out what it is.
Yeah, what comes after this? And my response back to them is, well, most of what has evolved over these past decades has come from people like you. So who knows where the next app or concept or idea will be hatched? It may very well be hatched in a dorm room somewhere, as Napster was in its time and other apps and technologies have been in their time. So, we don't know where that will be, but our association has created what we call the Academic Partnership Program. We have 20 colleges and universities across the country that have music business programs, and they become affiliated with Music Biz. And then by virtue of that, their music business students can be members and be part of Music Biz, which will certainly help with them as a resource and help with their professional development as they prepare for their careers. So education is a really big pillar of our association. Right now, we have about 2,000 students that are part of the organization because of their schools being affiliated with us. And so who knows, as you said, no crystal ball here either, but we're not going to be doing this forever. It's our responsibility to help prepare, both from a business and a creative standpoint, the new generations of visionaries and leaders. And who knows what the music business will look like in 5 or 10 years from now, but I will certainly be watching that myself.
Yeah, and I will too. I think you brought up something that's valid. I remember a conversation I had with my boss at one of the record labels, and this was probably around 98, 99, when we were discussing, why are we not doing CD singles anymore? And the response was, well, we're in the album business. Our business is to sell full albums, 10, 12 songs. And, within 2 years, that model, we threw that theory out the window, and we're back to selling singles. The other thing is when I talk about going into Amoeba Records and Tar Records, it used to be my place to go on Sunset Boulevard when a new album would come out. I'd run down to the Tar Records on Sunset. It was the store that had everything. But vinyl is, I'm thrilled to see that vinyl's making a comeback. It pains me to a certain extent that I got rid of my vinyl collection years ago, and my wife and I have slowly rebuilt it over the years, but it's a small percentage of what I used to have. But the younger generation is starting to get entranced with vinyl records, and I think that's cool. So even though we may all have those Apple Watches and iPads and other digital devices to listen to music, it's kind of cool that we've come full cycle back into how our parents and our grandparents listened to music, which was to put something on a turntable and drop the needle.
I would not have thought that, in Christmas season of 2017, you would walk down an aisle in, any one of a number of discount, department stores, mass merchant stores that we've referenced today, and seen an aisle of turntables in 2017. That would not have seemed possible. But when you make reference to this coming back, it's back. It's not, we're not in is this just a blip? No, we're now 11, 12 years into this, amazing revitalization and re-embracing and affection for vinyl. And it is exciting. We have these very interesting bookends of the music business today with vinyl at one end of the spectrum, and our streaming and voice activation and artificial intelligence and virtual reality and all of these new ways of experiencing music, at the other end of the spectrum. So your guess is as good as mine as to, what we will be doing, fill in the blank years from now. But where we are right now is in a very vibrant, exciting business of music that is providing enough opportunities depending on, where your love for music resides.
And I would have to say that the actual record manufacturers have, they all but went away, and, they're making a revival of sorts. And, that's creating more jobs. That's creating more.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, the vinyl pressing plant have really accelerated, and majority of them, certainly now, in these last, couple of months and leading up to Record Store Day, you're talking about these vinyl plants running 24/7, 7 days a week.
Just like the old days. Yeah. So, James, one last question I have for that young, aspiring artist out there. What bit of advice can you give them from your perspective?
I talk about this in my classes because a lot of my students are exactly what you described. They are aspiring artists. It's important that you experiment, that you put your music out there in different ways, that you try to develop a fan base, because the music business is very much an information and numbers based music business today, where if you're looking to get signed by a label, they're going to look at the number of fans and followers that you have. That's really important on the various ways in which you can do that through, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and so forth, that you're creating a profile for yourself. It's important that you perform live, that you, embrace the fact that in the new music economy, live performance is where it's at. That's not going to be replaced. That, artists who perform and tour and travel around, that's how they're making a lot of their money is through that live performance. And then, streaming, become very conversant and very familiar with the newest, biggest model, because this model is such that it's generating a constant source of revenue, because it's not, you just put the disc out and people buy it or they don't buy it. The streaming business is based around repeat, and the number of listens, the number of times somebody's going to listen to your song or your songs. So you've got to sort of recalibrate kind of the way you even look at the business. And certainly anybody that's very young who's thinking about the business doesn't really know from the way it used to be. This is their frame of reference is the frame of reference of what's going on now. So they do have an advantage in that respect, but such a competitive business. And, as you know, from having worked in it yourself, I say to my students, it's not a business for the faint of heart. You have to really have such a passion and a commitment to it that you can't imagine yourself doing anything else. You kind of need to have that. You need to be thinking that way to be successful, because it is so competitive.
James, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it. Want to let everybody know, first of all, Music Business Association celebrating their 60th anniversary. They've been around since 1958. James has been the president with them. He's been with the association for 30 years. James, how can people find out about Music Business Association?
Website is musicbiz.org. And our 60th anniversary conference is taking place at the Omni Nashville Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, from Monday, May 14th through Thursday, May 17th. And just check it out on our website. You can check out the schedule. There's a variety of ways, depending on your type of company, the type of segment of business that you're in. You can check all that information out, and if anyone has any questions, they can certainly reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer them. Conference is open to, songwriters, artists, labels, publishers, managers, record labels, distributors, music services, record stores. It's not open to the public. It is a business-to-business event, so you really do get a lot out of it if you are, either new to the business or looking to expand your business. It's about 2,000 attendees, and definitely check it out. And I would look forward to seeing you there.
Very good. I plan on being there.
Great.
So hope we can run into each other. I also want to remind everybody, April 21st of 2018 is Record Store Day, so please go out and visit your local record stores. If you haven't done that, you're going to be pleasantly surprised to find out what they carry in there. And it's not just turntables, and it's just some great music. So get ready, grab a cup of coffee, and spend some time. James, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Bob.
If you're interested in learning more about our show, drop us a line at musicpodcast@mail.com. That's musicpodcast@mail.com. If you have any suggestions of persons or topics that involve some facet of the music industry that you'd like to hear about on our podcast, please feel free to let us know. You can follow us on Facebook on the Business Side of Music podcast page. You can also find us on Twitter at Music Business Podcast. Also, if you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, post a review on what you think of our show. This is Bob Bender, and you've been listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender for Bob Bender Productions. Co-producer for the show is Vinny Rivas. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.